Okay, welcome back to Digital Imaging. What we're going to do today in our next practice here is talk about color and look at some different ways where you can select color and change colors inside your document and also create some objects here using some different colors and stuff like that here. So you've got this document open. Again, you want to make sure you are working on the right layer here. You should have this color layer, and then you've got this text layer here, and that should be locked. And then you want to make sure you're working on the same settings that I do. So I'm on Windows, Workspace, Essentials Classic. And then remember, if you ever need to reset that, you can always go back to Workspace and reset Essentials Classic here. Okay. So we've got our document, and we're just going to do some different ways where you can select color here. So remember, when you go to your color swatch or your color picker, you've got this here where you've got your slider where you can change your colors. This is all tints and shades, and you've got your stroke here. And you also have your swatches here, and here are your swatches. Inside your swatch library, you also have some other libraries to choose from. So if you're ever looking for some inspiration on color, you can click here and go to swatch library, and then inside here are just tons and tons of different colors that you can use to search around here. So I'm not going to go through all these, but you can just take a look at these here. Some are really good, and then some are not so great here to do that. If you like some swatch here, it'll bring it into a new window here, and you can always click and drag and pull that into your swatches here. For me, I'm just going to get rid of these for now here. First thing we're going to do is just look at some different ways where you can select color here. So I've got this image, I've got these different test squares. And one way you can select color is using photographs. And so if I grab my eyedropper tool, I can click throughout my document and find some different colors here by just kind of like selecting colors that are in my image. And so I can, go through and, maybe I like this blue, maybe I like this other like pink here. I can just go through and find some different colors, and that's a really great way to find different color scales and also different color schemes and things like that. And it works really well here. So go through, you can find some different colors in this image here. So I'm using my I key to grab my eyedropper tool, and I'm grabbing my V key to do my selection here of my different colors here. Okay. Another way that I can change different colors here is I can also create what's called a gradient using my blend colors. So let's say I'm just going to grab one of these squares here, and I'm going to make a copy of this. So to do that, I can press Control C. Another way I can do that is I can also just use my Alt key and make a copy of that. I'm going to make this a little bit lighter to kind of show you what we can do here. You can also make different gradients of color using the blend option. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to make a copy, and then I'm just going to slide this square over here, and then I'm just going to make this like a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab kind of like this light or this dark blue here. Okay, I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to Object and Blend, and then I'm going to go to Blend Options here. And there's lots of things that you can do inside these blend options here, but for us what we're going to do is create specified steps. And so what that means is we're going to create specified steps that go from this color to this color. You can also do this with shapes, where I could go from like a circle to a square over a certain amount of steps here. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. Let's say I'm going to do like 4 steps here, and then I'm press OK. It looks like nothing happened. What you have to do is you want to go back to Object and then go to Blend and then go to Make, because what you've done is you've put in those settings inside the blend tool here. Okay, and see now I've got this step guide. Actually, that worked out really well, where it goes from my light blue to my dark blue inside 4 steps here, which is pretty cool. So what I could do is I could use this to change the color of my design here. So I've got this design here that you guys are going to kind of play around with the color with. And that totally works as well. I would do the same thing. I could grab kind of like my dark blue and I could even use kind of my magic wand tool wouldn't work, but I'd want to go in and kind of select things individually. So if I hold shift, I can select this kind of medium gray, and maybe I want to do, kind of like that color here and do that. that's one way that I could recolor this, and I could go through and select all these shapes here and kind of recolor those. But there's also a quicker way and a new way inside Illustrator that you can also recolor things really quickly, which is really fun. So what I want to do is I've got my design, and my design is made up of all these different shapes here. And so what I want to do is I want to group these. So I'm going to select everything. So all this stuff is individual here. I'm going to select everything. So I'm going to select it all like this. And then I'm going to go up to Object and Group. Okay. And then I'm going to go to Edit and then go to Edit Colors here. Okay. There's lots of different settings in here that you can adjust things. But we're going to go to Recolor Artwork here. And then you'll have this window that opens up here. And there's some different options that we can do. There's a color library, so kind of like a swatch library. There's a color library where I can change some of these colors here, and you can see they're the same library here as my color library. So again, you can kind of go through and kind of find ones that you like here. I like this pop art one, and I can do that. So what I can do now is every time I've done this, it's always done it kind of a little bit different because it kind of creates this differently here. So I can kind of go in and kind of adjust things. So maybe I want to go in and kind of like recolor some stuff. I can drag this wheel, and you can see as it goes over different colors here, some of those things change here. And then I can click and drag and kind of adjust some of these specific colors here. The thing is though, it gets kind of crazy real quickly here when you kind of do that. So you got to kind of like take your time with it and do that here. You also have this slider here where you can adjust how some of those colors meet and kind of blend here by adjusting that slider as well here. Okay. So some pretty cool like different effects here. I actually kind of liked. Can I go backwards? Yes, I can. If I press Control Z, I can go backwards and kind of adjust some of those different colors. I kind of liked this one here. If you ever don't like what you did, you can always press this reset and kind of start over again. But for this one, I'm just going to keep that. Okay. This next one, we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to select this again. So I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to go up to Object and go to Group. Everything needs to be grouped to use this Edit Colors settings here. So I'm going to go to Recolor Artwork again. And then another way that you can do this is you can also use your eyedropper tool. So if I go to my color theme picker, I can go here and zoom out a little bit, and I can click this and I can adjust this here. So same thing, depending on different, and it uses an AI generative tool here to do this, but if I click on different colors, it will kind of change things differently depending on different colors that I pick inside my color here. Sometimes it works really well. When I've done this though, it always has trouble between these different values here of the cat. So you do need to kind of go in and kind of adjust some of those things here. But it's pretty cool what it can do. So I do want to make this kind of like a little bit lighter and adjust some of those colors here so I can see more of my cat. Okay. So a lot of times I'll need to adjust these individual colors here, or I can adjust this by increasing or decreasing some of the weight of these colors here. So I can kind of pull these sliders and kind of play around with those here. I'm not quite crazy about, I like that better actually. I'm not quite crazy about the dark green that was back there here. Again, same thing. I can click reset here and change those different colors. To find this image, you guys are not going to have this image here. To find my image, I just looked up an image online, and I looked up something like cool colors, because I wanted cool colors, not like cool looking, but cool colors here. Graphic design here, and I just kind of found one with some different cool colors in there and dropped that in there. So I just did like a right click on the image, went to like copy image, and then I pasted that into my document here. Okay. But pretty cool here. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to create some transparency here. So you've got some different shapes, and there's ways to add transparency to colors here. I'm just going to grab some of these colors here. So I'm going to grab kind of like this dark blue. Actually, I'm going to do this kind of like lighter blue. And then I'm going to grab one of my other colors from this photo here. Something that's going to kind of blend nice. So I like that yellow. It's a little Too muddy though, so I'm going to add another color here. Okay. So you can create different transparencies by going into your transparency layer here. So remember, if you can't find anything, you go up to Window and go to Transparency. And then there's some different modes here, different blending modes. So like there's Multiply, there is Color Burn, Overlay here, Soft Light. These different modes will do different things with your colors, and I use these all the times with like different textures and stuff like that. And then you can also adjust your opacity too. So the opacity is like how see-through a color is here. So if I want to add this one, make this something like 40, okay, and then I can, change this one and make it something like 30 here. Let's do like 70, see what that looks like. You can kind of see how those colors kind of blend. Okay, you could play around with the different order of things. So I could bring this up here. So if I do a right click, I can go to range. I can do like bring to front. You can see how that blue on top of the yellow changes as compared to if I have the yellow, on top of the blue here. Okay, you can see more of that overlap there. All right. For this next one, what we're going to do is we're going to be creating some spheres using our gradient tool and some other different tools here. So I am going to actually use these colors that I made. So I've done the same thing here with this. I used my blend mode and made these different colors here and did that here. Okay. You can do whatever colors you'd like here, but I'm just going to do these blues here and do that. Actually, just going to replace this and just kind of bring this down here. I've got more colors than I need, so, but that's okay. Okay. I've got our light source here. So if you've ever done some drawing, you know that if you do a drawing, you've got your light source, and that'll kind of guide me as to where my highlights and my shadows are here. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to do kind of like a lighter color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a shadow here, and I'm going to use some different functions here to do that. So what I'm going to do is make a copy of this. And what I want to do is cut out kind of like a shadow, and you'll see what I do here in a second. To do that, I could paste this and then try to put this over on top of it here. But what I want to actually do is do paste in place. So I'm going to go here and go to paste in place. And what that's going to do is going to paste it right on top of where I copied it from here. Okay. And then I'm going to do that one more time here. So I'm going to do Control C and then edit, paste in place, which for me is Control Shift V here. Okay. I'm going to bring this up here, and I want to make a shadow. So what I'm going to do is kind of look at where my light source is coming from, select this piece, and then I'm going to grab my Pathfinder tool, and I want to delete this piece and this piece to create my shadow. Okay. I'm going to do this one more time here, so I'm going to make a copy of this, Control Shift V 2 times. And then I'm going to make kind of like a skinnier sliver for my shadow. So remember, with the Pathfinder tool, I can either add or delete from my selection. So I'm holding my Alt key and I am deleting these two pieces here like that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool and make this darker shadow here. Okay. Now we're going to create kind of a highlight. So I am going to actually, I'll just make a circle here. So I'm just going to grab my circle tool, and I'm going to hold Shift to make a circle. I'm going to just grab a different color here so I can kind of see how big this is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my width tool, which we just used earlier, and I'm going to create kind of like a highlight. I'm going to rotate this and make this into a stroke, and then I'm going to grab my scissors tool or my eraser tool. Either one would work here, but I'm just going to grab like my scissors tool. I'm just going to kind of cut this like that and delete that other piece here. So now I've got my piece. It's going to be my highlight, and I'm just going to give this a rounded cap here. So I'm going to go to my cap tool, and then I'm going to grab my width tool, which is right here where we used our distort. Now remember with the width tool, you can grab things, and where this little white circle is where I can make this thicker, and I can kind of pull that out. Okay, I can select some of these different endpoints, kind of adjust those, individually. I can make these kind of skinnier here, like that. And then what I want to do is I want to make this from a white to a stroke. It's a little too gray. I'm gonna make this white. And then I could go in here and go to my transparency layer, which I don't see for some reason. So I'm going to go up to transparency and bring this down. Okay. I could try some of these different multiply options here or overlay and do that. I could do kind of lighten. So you can kind of play around with those here. I kind of like soft light. It looks nice. I might make this just a little bit lighter here and do that. Okay. I could soften these edges too. So if I wanted to soften the edges of these, I could go up to Effect and then go to Stylize, and then I could do like Feather, and Feather is where you soften the edges of things, and kind of like, something like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this other one here. That's my cat in the background, if you can hear that. Okay. And then last thing I want to do, actually I want to make like one kind of like bright, what's called like a hot point in drawing here. You've got kind of like a bright highlight here. And so I'm just going to make this like that, and then same thing. Liked that soft light, and then I actually will do. I'm going to bring this down. Actually, just going to do normal. I'm just going to bring this down here a little bit lighter. Okay. I could also like adjust this. I could grab like one of my, warp tools, kind of like adjust this. Could be kind of fun here that we did in our last one, but I actually don't like what I just did. But you can kind of play around with it. And then the last thing we're going to do is, I think I will also feather this. Can I feather this stroke? Yes, I can. Wasn't sure if I'd have to make that into an object here. Okay. I think I'll add another feather. I was just asking if I wanted to add a new effect. Okay. I could spend a lot of time on this. I could also like add a gradient to this, but I'm gonna kind of move on from there. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add kind of like a little bit of a drop shadow. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'll put this to the back here. I'm gonna go to Object Arrange, and I'm gonna do Send to Back. I just did the quick keys and sent that to the back there. And then last thing I'm gonna do here is, lighten this. And then I want to feather this a lot. Actually, kind of like that. Maybe something like that. Okay. Okay, and then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing with a different color, and you're going to fill in this same circle here, doing the same process. So I've got my color that I've already made here, and I'm going to use that. You don't have to use these 4 colors like I did. You could use 3 colors. I just ended up making these using that blend option here and doing that. I'm going to grab my eyedropper, fill this in, make a copy, paste it, holding shift. I'm gonna make my shadow here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm not ready to move that, so I'm gonna align this here. And then I'm gonna make another copy. And I'm gonna paste that. Control Shift V to do paste in place here. Okay, then I'm gonna grab my Pathfinder tool. I'm gonna delete that piece here. And then do this one more time here. So Control C, make my little shadow. That's a little bit too dark. And I'm just going to do kind of like a little sliver here to cut that. And then remember, I'm holding Alt to adjust. And I actually think I need to bring this down just a little bit. So I'm going to use my arrow keys to kind of bring that down. And delete those pieces. Whoops. What did I do? There we go. Excellent. Oh, interesting. Looks like those pieces were kind of overlapping here. So I'm just going to grab my eraser tool and kind of fix that. Then I can grab my direct selection tool and delete this other piece. Okay, I'm not going to go through this last one. It's the same process as this. I'm going to use the blur tool. I'm going to use my blur options here and add those highlights and stuff like that. Okay. Last thing we're going to do, or last thing we're going to do here is we're going to create some gradients here. So remember, you've got your gradient tool here. So if I click and drag, usually it creates a gradient for me. It looks like it's not doing that right now. But I'm going to grab my gradient, and down here is my gradient. If I'm looking for that, I can always go to Window, and then it's going to be in alphabetical order, and I can open up my gradient tool. Okay, I'd like to detach this to do that. So if I click on this shape here, with my gradient tool, I can click and drag, and depending on which direction I click and drag, I can create that gradient. Here we have a linear gradient. Here we have a radial gradient. A radial gradient is one that's based on a circle. Okay, so I click and drag and pull that out. I've got these sliders here, so I can change, you know, how close together this white transitions to this black here if I pull these sliders. And then this slider here will give me either like a sharp line or like a nice blur here. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can also create your own gradient. So if I open up my swatches, I can do that. So if I've got like different swatches that I want to use, I can do that, and I can click and drag and pull these colors down into my gradient here. Okay, you've got to do this with your swatches. You can't go over here and grab colors. You've got to use your swatches. So what I'll do if I need to grab like a specific color, if I go to my color palette, let's say I want like this like specific blue, I can click and drag and I can pull this blue into my swatches panel, and then from there I can drag this into my gradient here. Okay, if I want to take a color off of my gradient, I can just pull directly down and then let go and get rid of that. Now remember, it's a gradient, so it's got to have at least two colors because it's blending those colors together here. So if I just want like this yellow and this blue, I can keep that there like that here. Okay. I think I'm just going to actually kind of like this yellow and this red here. I like those kind of warm colors here. Same thing with this other slider. I can adjust, you know, where those colors kind of blend and meet, and do that here. Okay. This gradient can also be applied to, like, if I wanted to make this look more 3D, I could apply this gradient. So I could grab kind of like this pink here, put that into my swatch, you know, and then I could take this yellow, pull that yellow out, you know, and kind of adjust that highlight, which is kind of nice here. Okay. The gradient tool, with the gradient tool, you can only adjust your gradient. You can only adjust your gradient using the gradient tool. You can change your gradient with the slider here. Okay. So So it looks like kind of like a little bit better here. This transition is not very clean. Okay, and then to do a transparent gradient, I can do the same thing. You can also go, I believe there's a gradients panel here. You know, if you want to look through this, here's like some greens here. You can also adjust like specific colors inside your gradient. So if I just want like these two, I can adjust this and make this more transparent. So if I double click on that color, I can bring down my opacity and do that. I can also, oh gosh, that's a new thing. I used to not be able to do this, but if you double click on the color, you can also go in your color picker and do that and adjust that. That's a new thing inside Illustrator. Okay, so you can also make this transparent. So what I want you to do is overlap this so I can kind of see that you've made this transparent here and do that. Okay. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to do some more color selection. So I've got some colors here for this. And there's lots of different ways that we can color this in. This planter here is basically like 3 pieces. I've got my leaves here, and then I've got my circles here. I could color this in doing a couple different things here. If I try to like grab my eyedropper tool, these circles I can't color in because they're made up of these strokes here. I can make these like a little bit darker, which I think I'm going to do. But what I want you to do is kind of color these in using some different techniques. So I'm going to color this in using my paint bucket tool. So my paint bucket tool is a tool that I always kind of forget where it's at. I always have to look for the paint bucket tool. Here I can grab the paint bucket tool. It's inside, it's underneath my shape builder tool. Okay, I've got this color selected. I can also drop this color in here. I guess it's not going to let me do that. We can do this a different way here. Another way we can do this is we can use our Pathfinder tool. So I'm going to grab a rectangle and I'm going to make this section back here. I'm going to send this to the back. So I'm going to do Object Arrange. And I'm going to send this all the way to the back here. Okay, so we're going to put that underneath. And then I want to select these. These are all grouped. I'm going to hold Shift and select this other piece. And then I'm going to grab my shape builder tool. And I'm going to delete this background piece here like that. Okay. And that way I've got those filled in. I'm going to do the same thing with the leaves. I'm going to do kind of this darker color for the leaves. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab another square, fill that in, send that to the back here. I use my quick keys to send that to the back. And then I want to select them. And then I can grab my paint bucket tool, or not my paint bucket tool, my Pathfinder tool, and delete that here. Okay. And then the last thing, I'm going to do this planter pot, and then I'm going to fill that in with this color here. Select these, hold Shift, grab my Pathfinder tool, and do that. This is all one piece. I should be able to make this and fill this in with kind of like a different color. So I want to make this kind of like just a little bit darker to kind of show like a shadow. And grab my paint bucket tool and fill that piece in. But it doesn't look like it wants to let me do that. I'm not sure why it's not working. Anyway, let's go with it here. And then I want to put this to the back here, and I'm going to fill in this shadow, kind of like this green. Oh, it's got that gradient. Let's do like this blue here. I'm going to do this kind of like lighter green, and then I'm going to fill this in with a darker blue. I'm going to select these guys, grab my Pathfinder tool, shape builder, not my Pathfinder tool, and fill that in like that. I'm just kind of looking if there's another tool that I can use to kind of fill that in. I'm just kind of surprised. I need to select them both, and that's why it's not working for me. That's it. Yep, I forgot to select them both. There we go. So now I should be able to select those individually and make them just like a little bit darker here. So I just want to bring those down